Good evening and calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools regular Board of Education meeting. It is Tuesday, January the 21st. Charlotte, may you please call the roll?
Mr. Gagnon?
Present.
Mr. Goldman?
Here.
Dr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Merrimon?
Here.
Mrs. Nezarella?
Present.
Dr. Thomas-Farquharson?
Here.
Mrs. Yagaloff?
Excused.
Student Representative Sarah Granquist?
Present.
And Student Representative Alexis Nguyen?
Here.
Thank you so much. And Alexis, may you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do not have a revision to the agenda order, and now it is time for public communications. This is where we're able to hear from you, your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions. Each individual is allowed 3 minutes to speak. We ask when you please come to the podium to please share your name and your town of residence. Please also be mindful of Charlotte, who will hold up a yellow card when you have 1 minute remaining in your time. And when your time is expired, you will see a red card. We ask for you please to conclude your sentence and respectfully take your seat. Please be mindful that we are attentively listening to what is being shared. However, it is policy that we do not respond to comments as they're being made. With this being the first meeting of the month, we are receiving comments on both agenda and non-agenda items. I have a list here, however, no one has signed up on the list, but let me first, for our awareness, remind us of what the agenda includes for today. It is accept revised policies 4080, 5110, 5360, 5370, 6320, 8355, approval of plans and specifications for Bugby School, adoption of annual Board of Education meeting schedule 2025-2026, pupil services special programming, approval of the financial report ending November 30th, 2024, and approval of minutes from December 17th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. So with that, we'll ask if there's anyone here in the audience who would like to speak. We'll start first for those speaking on agenda items. Again, there's no one who is signed up on the list, so I was asking if there's anyone here who would like to speak on an agenda item first. Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak on any agenda item? We'll ask again. All right, with that, we shall pause on public communications. And we'll move to non-staff communications and reports. And this is where we are able to hear from our student representatives, the first time we're hearing from you in 2025. And so with that, let us first begin hearing from Sarah, sharing about Hall.
So we're about halfway done with our midterms, and semester 2 will be starting on Friday. It is crazy to think how fast the year has gone by with all of the exciting events at Hall. This past Saturday, Hall hosted a wrestling tournament that was attended by 23 teams. The Titans have also had a few recent victories in boys basketball and hockey. Coming up soon, from February 1st through February 5th, Hall and Conard boys and girls hockey are hosting a food drive for the West Hartford Food Pantry and a fundraiser for CT Food Share. Their goal is to collect 500 non-perishable items and raise $500 to support 1,000 meals. Donations can be dropped off at Veterans Memorial Skating Rink the week of February 1st. The Hall cheerleaders recently hosted another community outreach program with their youth community clinic on January 25th. Younger students had the opportunity to participate in a cheerleading clinic run by Hall cheerleaders and will have the opportunity to cheer at a Hall sports game. Yesterday, Maxwell St. Ahmad spoke at the MLK Day celebration as a Hall representative, and we are very proud of his leadership. The Hall Music Department also has many exciting events coming up. The Black Box performance of our winter play, Unity 1918, starts on January 30th and goes through February 1st. The Hall Concert Jazz Band was named a finalist in both the Mingus and Essentially Ellington competitions, which is a very big honor and an impressive accomplishment. The Hall and Conard Orchestra Pops concerts are coming up next week, and high school musicians will play a number of pop songs with middle schoolers at KP and Sedgwick to encourage orchestra participation in high school. Tickets for the annual Chocolate Cafe performance go on sale on February 1st. There will be both a daytime concert and a night concert, and West Hartford select orchestra musicians will be joined by the Inter-Elementary Orchestra and KP Middle School Orchestra Bowstrings. Chocolate Cafe will take place on February 22nd this year, and tickets have been known to sell out fast, so we recommend buying your tickets early. Many of our hall students have recently been honored for their achievements. 4 students had their art selected for the Scholastic Art Award exhibit, and these students are Georgia Caldwell, Abby Brunges, Celia Gillis, and Rachel Simmons. Tyler Redden was also awarded CHSCA All-State Honors in football. Hall's Winter Pep Rally is coming up soon, and we are looking forward to a fun performance from students and staff to the song "We're All in This Together," and as always, lots of Titan spirit.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And Alexis, please share what's going on at Conard.
After a much-needed winter break, Conard students and staff came back about 2 weeks ago and have been busy ever since. Back in December, our student council collaborated with the freshman-sophomore class board to host a gingerbread house-making competition where over 100 students and faculty participated. This is a tradition we will definitely continue in the future. Junior class board would also like to extend a thank you to everyone who participated and contributed to Holiday Helpers. Through your generous donations, the Conard community was able to assist over 68 students and their families during the holiday season. Student Council also took part in the Global Mural Project, creating a vibrant one that is 10 feet. They sent strips of their mural to 9 high schools across the country and are eagerly anticipating the arrival of the strips from those schools, which they'll combine with a kept piece in order to assemble a complete mural. Right now, Conard staff is participating in the Get Caught Doing Good campaign. Each staff member receives 10 tickets and gives one to a student when they see them making a positive impact on our school. Tickets are entered in a raffle in the library, and a winner is chosen every month. And a heartfelt thank you goes to our incredible school counseling department for hosting an outstanding FAFSA completion night. This event provided students and their parents/caregivers with personalized guidance and support as they navigated the difficult process of completing the FAFSA form. We are so grateful for their dedication and expertise in this area. Additionally, thank you to everyone that attended our 8th grade parent night. We had a great turnout. We want to give a huge shout out to our Conard PTO, department supervisors, and teachers for participating and organizing the event to welcome those new to our den. On January 8th, Conard students Julian Watson and Isabella Tamborel Noble presented at the University of Connecticut's Human Rights Close to Home Youth Summit. This summit gives participants an opportunity to learn about and engage with human rights issues. Julian and Isabella are youth fellows via HRCH and each presented about their year-long community engagement projects. As a member of the Human Rights Close to Home Steering Committee, social studies teacher Abby Esposito also presented at the conference. So proud of our students for immersing themselves in exciting opportunities like this. We're proud of the Conard Jazz Combo who performed at the Martin Luther King celebration yesterday. Thank you to band director Mike Wyatt for support and direction. Thank you to Asha Comiso for her wonderful speech and to Julian Watson for leading an interpretive discussion on the images in the MLK mural on the library wall. On January 17th and 18th, over 30 talented Conard musicians participated in the CMEA Northern Region High School Festival. Right now, ensembles are preparing for Midfest and Choral Fest concerts where they spend a day working through music with 8th graders to perform at a concert the same night. Along these lines, there will be a winter jazz show January 29th that includes CJB, Jazz Ensemble, and Sedgwick's Jazz Ensemble. Make sure to come check out any of these concerts filled with outstanding music. With winter sports well underway, there are some notable achievements that have happened for our Conard athletes. The boys hockey team has maintained an undefeated record, even beating Hall 6-0 at their first meeting of the year. From the girls basketball team, standout senior Emily Knowles became the all-time leading scorer in the for West Hartford Public Schools. She also scored 40 points in one game, which is the most anyone has scored in a game at Conard, breaking her own previous record. We'll be cheering on the boys basketball team who takes on Hall tonight. We look forward to seeing the amazing accomplishments and success of our athletes. And obviously, good luck to all of our students with midterms this week. Finish off strong.
Thank you, Alexis. My, oh my, Sarah and Alexis, a lot has happened since we last saw you both. Boy. But you continue to make us proud representing your schools. Thank you so very much. Now moving on to unfinished business, which we do not have any of, and on to new business, new and revised policies as a first reading. We have a recommendation, the recommendation is a motion. Let me start that once again. Seeking a motion by Lorna Thomas-Farquharson, Jason Gagnon, and Gayle Harris that the Board of Education accept as a first reading the following new and revised policies which were reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee. They include Personnel Series 4000, 4080, Use of Social Media, revised. Student Series 5000, 5110, Confidentiality and Access to Education Records, revised. 5360, Use of Private Technology Devices by Students, new. 5370, Student Use of the District's Computer Systems and Internet Safety, new. Instruction Series 6000. 6320, weighted grading and calculation of grade point averages, revised. Again, this is a first reading, but nonetheless seeking a motion for what has been proposed.
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shannon. Discussion. So, Dr. Murrow, thank you for being before us. And with these several policies, again, some of them are new, some of them are revised, but you have had an opportunity to review them, and this is our opportunity to discuss. But nonetheless, Dr. Murrow, passing it to you if you care to add anything else.
I think you covered it all. Like we said before, these are the recommended policies based on changes that were passed in the last legislative cycle.
Questions or comments? Again, there are several before us, and as we strive to do, many of these are ones that we are obligated to adhere to, but nonetheless, we do bring it before you for your awareness. Shannon, yes.
Just relative to the 480R use of social media, where it says that if an employee, if there's an issue there, it interferes, disrupts, or undermines the effective operation of the school district, and so on, what is the criteria, or is there a body that reviews those instances, or what's the process to determine the level of how it's escalated, possibly?
That would really be situational, and a lot of that would be then determined by myself in consultation with Shipman and Goodwin representatives, as well as with Mr. Duarte in our offices.
Other questions or comments? Ethan.
So on the 5110, other than capitalizing or non-capitalizing, the only comment there is adding the district Title IX coordinator as opposed, but there's no other educational person mentioned. Why is that singled out and not the others? Or?
The others are already considered school officials for the purpose of educational records.
They're not in the policy.
If they have a legitimate need for that. In this, it's to clarify that the Title IX coordinator is a school official that has that interest as well.
Okay, I guess I'm just confused why one and not others.
Because it's already presumed, for example, that if a principal has access based on a need to a student record, that would be available. I can get further.
No.
I can get further clarification for you if you'd like, and I can.
If you don't mind, yeah,
Sure.
I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just, I realize I'm confused. But.
Are you referencing page 8?
Yeah, it's
Item-
only,
So
It's the only one
it does say right in the first line that a school official is a person employed by the district as an administrator. So that description would be inclusive of, all of your principals, your assistant principals, et cetera. So that's a heading. I think the call out for Title IX is under Shipman, because in some districts Title IX might be a kind of a separate thing, but in our district our Title IX coordinator is already one of our administrators.
well, that's what I assumed.
But I think it's an important clarification, should that ever change, that the responsibilities under Title IX are inclusive of, access to information in the same regard as other school administrators.
No, I'm not saying it's wrong, I just.
Do you have additional follow-up?
No, I'm
Okay.
good. Andy was going to get back to me, I believe.
All right. Other questions or comments regarding the proposed policies presented as a first reading? All right. Seeing none, again, this is a first reading. The next time it'll come before us for a vote. Let us now move on to seeking a motion by Jason Gagnon and Gayle Harris that the Board of Education accept as a first reading the following revised policy, which was reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee.
So moved.
Oh, I didn't, pardon. Thank you. I was still reading. Yes, your mics were on, so that's good. That's all right. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. All right, let's try that again, but thank you, Claire. All right, seeking a motion by Jason Gagnon, Gayle Harris, that the Board of Education accept as a first reading the following revised policy, which was reviewed by the Board Policy Subcommittee. Board of Operations and Bylaws, Series 8000, 80 through 55, Meeting Conduct, Public Comment, revised. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Gayle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Discussion. So with this, I will respectfully pass to you, Gayle. I know that you have made reference to this and want to receive your words in summary of where we are, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a policy that we changed approximately, I want to say approximately 15 months ago. And I think that we've seen the policy in action for about 15 months now. Just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, the policy was changed at approximately 15 months ago to make it so that public comment on non-agenda items could only be made at the beginning of one of the board meetings and not the other. And it was also limited as to how many comments could be made with a time limit or number of people that could speak. I wanted to look at this policy again because I don't feel that the policy is working well over the last year or so while we've had the change. And it was brought to the policy committee, and there was agreement from some of the members that the policy really didn't work that well, and it was revised by actually one of the members of the policy committee so that we could potentially make it into a better policy, which I believe it is now written as a more clear and better policy. So that's sort of the background, and was certainly interested in hearing other policy committee members' opinions and people on the board in general.
Thank you, Gayle. Jason.
So I'll echo a lot of what Gayle has just said. I think for a number of us on the board, we've struggled with this policy. I'd like to recognize, where the other revision came from, and then it came from a place of trying to address things like efficiency and being able to get to, the business of the board. So those are concerns that I can really appreciate. However, I think in crafting this, what we've tried to do is simplify it, and simplify it first and foremost for the people who come to our meetings, for the parents, the citizens of West Hartford who give up their time to come to a meeting. I know we've all struggled, sending some of those people away because they didn't know it was the first or the second meeting. And so one of the things this policy does is it gets rid of that dichotomy. There's no longer distinction between first or second meetings, and it also does eliminate essentially the cap on number of speakers. It does keep the preference, or at least the priority for agenda items to come first. That way, especially if there's a vote that night, that those folks who come to speak on those would be heard. And I think what this policy tries to recognize is it's not easy for people to come to these meetings and to speak publicly to the Board of Education. That is not only something that takes a certain level of courage to do, but it's also something that is logistically complicated for a lot of people. I know we all experience the balance of, the kids have to be here, who's doing practice. I've got 2 at swim practice right now, and we had to arrange tonight who was dropping off and who was able to pick up. That happens, across the district. Every night we have a meeting, and I think fundamentally it's unfair to ask people to, show up one night and it happens to be the wrong night and they get sent home. And then we struggle with, okay, well then who gets an exception? And I think that's unfair to the board, to put us into a position of we're deciding who's essentially worthy, whose topic rises to the level of getting an exception to our standing policy. And so factoring in those, I think what we've tried to do is just a very simple policy that errs on the side of giving access to the Board of Education. And I happen to think that the Board of Ed is probably, for a lot of people, their first and only interaction with government. It's probably the closest one to them, And it is the one that, quite frankly, deals with something that is important to all of us, which is our children.
So as the third member on the policy committee, I will respond, and I will be fully transparent that I'm not in favor of what has been proposed. And I respect my colleagues and certainly respect the process that it goes before the board for discussion, but do want to share that my stance is not in alignment with how it has been reworded, and for various reasons. One, recognizing, and thank you for the timeline, Gayle, of about 15 months, what has transpired over that time, and being a part of that process and recognizing where we were and what led to the revisions to where we are at this time. And we know that I appreciate, thank you, Jason, for recognizing how we want to be efficient with our board meetings. We certainly know that we have an agenda because we have many items to cover, and we certainly want to prioritize what those items are. We also recognize that hearing from the constituents, hearing from the parents, from the families, that's a priority as well. And that is why we are so fortunate that we do provide public comment at every meeting, at the beginning and at the end. And I think in us going through the process of making the revisions to the policy, and we thank staff that did some research of other districts comparing how their public comments are. We know that we far exceed the opportunities for public communications by quite a large amount. And so with that, the intent for the revision to where it is at this time, rather currently, not the proposed revision, is because it is important for us to prioritize agenda items. There have been times where our meetings were a bit involved, that is. And we certainly want to hear what has to be shared, but certainly when there are items that have to be voted on, we want to receive those comments as well. And that is why we have consistently prioritized hearing agenda items first with public comments. The reason why I have some concerns with the language proposed here is it opens up the opportunities, rather it brings us back even further from the initial revision that was made. The initial revision that was made recognized prioritizing agenda items followed by non-agenda items, but it still did acknowledge that we would hear up to a certain number of individuals, and this would allow us to still attend to the business at hand. And again, we do have public comment at the end of the meetings as well, and we have public comment at every meeting. But nonetheless, I respect the process. I will also note that since the change was made to the policy that we have at hand, we know anytime there's change, there's some bumps in the road. So yes, we did have some moments where we did have to modify the public comment to allow for situational matters happening at that time. However, since then, and from the beginning of this academic year, we have not had that to happen. I think it takes time for them to adjust to change, and for the most part, they have been respectful to that process, and we appreciate that. And so from 15 months ago to now, I think we have gotten into a good stride, a good pace. We appreciate the public for respecting the policy as is, and we appreciate always hearing from the public, and the way the policy is at this time still allows for that. But I will again open it up to others to share their thoughts, their questions, their concerns. And this is a first reading, so any vote will not happen at this time. It will happen at a later time. Ethan, yes.
So in the spirit of full disclosure, I voted against the change 15 months ago. And also, based on what I had seen happen over the year, raised the issue last spring. I think we did it, and I think there were flaws. I think in some cases, it's not possible to remedy those flaws. And what comes to mind is we had a parent who came here, had to hire a sitter, only to find out she came the second meeting of the month. We voted to let her speak, which I think was the right thing to do, but there's no way a parent's going to understand what's the first, or most parents won't. So you do take a risk that some parents are going to come here, and I've seen some, and they just walk away where they've come on their own and didn't get the chance to speak, and I think that's unfortunate. I think the other thing is we have had conflicts as to what's an agenda item and what's not an agenda item, and this would remedy that situation. And the other thing I'd say is New England has a long tradition of citizens speaking at public meetings. And I think that's a healthy, and I'm frankly disappointed that today we had no speakers. Last month, I know there was one of the dates we didn't have anybody speak. It's really dried up. And I think that's unfortunate because I think it's important that we hear from the public, whether I like what they have to say or they don't have to say. I think it's a great process to give people a chance, and I hope we vote for this. When we vote.
When we vote, correct, yes. And I appreciate again, Ethan, you have been open throughout in terms of your thoughts and your views, so I respect that. I want to also just share that our intent has never, ever been to deter anyone from feeling, from wanting to share and to speak. So with the volume of participants as of late, I just don't want that to be construed as persons not being allowed to speak. It's just a matter of what topic items. But yes, you want to say something.
Yeah, I don't think there's an intent, but I think we've had people come and then left, and we're not always sure. We didn't go and ask them, did you come, is this a hardship for you to come? I know in one case, it was a hardship for someone to come. We voted to let her speak until and afterwards we found it was a hardship. So I think I'd rather err on the side of letting people speak than err on not letting people speak, because people don't necessarily come back, so.
Other thoughts? Jason.
I would just piggyback on Ethan's thoughts there, where there is a burden to be placed on the public communication. I think the burden should be on us to have to, maybe it's a later night every now and then, rather than someone came the wrong night or having to figure out what night it is. If I have to sacrifice, efficiency or allowing public access, I'm going to lean much more in favor of more open public access.
Claire.
So I was in favor of the policy change both in November 2022 and June 2023. I think change is hard, and we struggled. I did not struggle. At each time, I felt that the policy stated that non-agenda items could be at the first meeting of the month. It's stated on the website, and it takes an adjustment to get used to a change, but over time, I felt that would happen. When we voted in favor of the policy changes, my vote was based on the premise that the bi-monthly Board of Ed meeting is held to conduct board business. It's critical we get feedback at each meeting on agenda items being discussed and voted on. We have decisions to make, and I value all the different perspectives. It does take courage to come to meetings, but there are policies that you must follow. There is a policy that you cannot show up at a town council meeting to speak on agenda or non-agenda items without permission. I feel and still feel that open comments once a month allows citizens to share concerns that are not on the board's business agenda. As I mentioned, the town council does not allow non-agenda speakers, not at the first meeting or the second meeting. In fact, speakers must write ahead to the town council to speak on agenda items. Many Board of Eds throughout Connecticut only have one meeting a month. Are the residents of Avon, Farmington, New Britain, and South Windsor silenced because they can only bring up non-agenda item topics once a month? Some residents may feel it's a hardship to wait until the first meeting of the month. And throughout the month, we receive public input. We get email communications, follow up with the superintendent. We consider new issues that arise or directly follow through when items are critical. Some constituents write 12 times a month, and some email twice a day. The proposed changing of this policy disrespects the intent behind our previous revisions, as well as the vote and input of board members. Since the 22 revisions, there have been 2 residents, who have objected to the past policy changes. I believe one meeting a month to hear residents' off-agenda concerns allows board members to hear what matters to the West Hartford residents. I'm voting against the proposed policy changes and hope other members do the same.
Thank you. At the time when we vote, yes, which is not today. Today's first reading, yes. Other thoughts, questions? Gayle.
I just wanted to bring up one other point which has been brought up, but I'm going to bring it up as well. I think that the board becoming the arbiters of free speech is a very big problem. And while over the last 15 months, there have been several people at this board who have decided that certain people can speak, including the chair of this board. And
myself included. So I think that when we are deciding who can speak and who cannot speak, because that is in the policy that we can make an exception, and then we make those exceptions, we are putting ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. So I agree with both what Jason and Ethan said. I don't think that that should be the purview of the board to be deciding who can speak and who cannot speak. And given the volume of speakers that we have had over the last 6 months or so, I feel that it's not a burden on our meetings. It's not taking excessive amounts of time. It's not stopping us from doing board business. And it allows the public to feel that they are being listened to and that we want to hear from them, and we're not turning them away at a board meeting because they didn't get the meeting right and they didn't understand what was considered an agenda item and what wasn't. So I really, one of my biggest issues with the way the policy is now is that I think it puts us in a very, very bad situation when we are deciding who can and who can't speak at a meeting.
Thank you. If I may respond, and I respectfully disagree with a couple of points made. For one, with respect to our public comments at our meetings, we know that we hold meetings in public. However, they are not public meetings. And so having public comment is a part of our agenda. However, it is not something that is restricting or controlling of any type of speech or freedom of speech. We want and welcome hearing from the public, and that's why we have an opportunity for public comment at the beginning and the end of each meeting. But with respect to the claim that the board chair is arbitrarily deciding on who speaks and who does not speak, respectfully disagree with that, because we know that although we have a board chair, we are a board. The role of the board chair is to assist with the efficient flow of the meeting, but it is not to be one of a dictatorship where the board chair alone decides what takes place. And that is why any time a rule has been suspended to allow for someone to speak on a non-agenda item at the second meeting of the month, that has only followed due process of a motion being raised and it being seconded and there being a vote. And the majority of those who vote in favor of suspending the rules, that has been the result of deciding on who speaks and who does not speak. It is not the sole ownership of the board chair. So just want to be clear with what that process is. And so as we continue to review this policy and discuss it, this is all a part of that to discuss, but just want to be clear in terms of past events and certainly where we stand and certainly the role of those who play a role in the path forward that we take. Response, yes.
Yeah, let me just clarify. What my intent was saying was that the chair of the board has also suspended the rules to allow certain people to speak. Not the chair of the board is not the only person who's done that, but the chair of the board has also suspended the rules when the chair of the board felt that she wanted to hear from certain people speaking about certain issues. And it's entirely correct. The board had to vote on the motion that was made by the chair. And the vote passed, as it has with other people on the board who have attempted to suspend the rules to hear people speak. So I stand by the clarification.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Other questions or comments or thoughts? Shannon.
So I, having not been here when this, yeah, can you hear me? Having not been here when this was introduced, I feel that coming into this role, it's been very difficult to implement it with fidelity and consistency, and it does feel like at times we are put in a difficult situation where we have to make a call, and it can feel like a slippery slope if we allow the exception for 1 or 2 or 3. When do we draw that line? And so I am in favor of some policy change that makes this more clear, makes it easier for the public to understand and not show up in, even I've had times where I've tried to explain, first meeting of the month, second meeting of the month, and it's confusing. I could imagine for someone who's coming to speak for the first time. I do have a clarification question with the way that this is marked up, because it mentions a maximum of 10 persons shall be permitted to comment on non-agenda items at the beginning, and then what was crossed out was a maximum of 7 persons shall be allowed to comment on each subject matter. Can someone who made the change or proposed the change explain the shift from do those two relate to one another, or is this, why did we remove the line about 7 persons shall be allowed to comment on each subject matter?
So the thought process behind that was quite frankly, the 7-person limit on each subject matter seemed somewhat arbitrary. So for instance, if a subject that we were voting on that night, right, so that would have been, commenting on an agenda item, you got, 7 people could comment on a subject matter. Well then, what if I'm the 8th person who showed up? And that seemed, somewhat unfair, especially, as we've been discussing this in general. I think those nights where a lot of people are going to show up and it's going to be a long night, well, obviously some policy we've done has touched a chord. It struck something that people think is really important, so they're going to come. And I thought their having a cap at all was kind of arbitrary.
So the cap applies to non-agenda items, 10 persons at most at the beginning of the meeting, no cap on agenda items, as many people who want to speak on an agenda item can.
That is correct. Okay. The only reason there was a cap placed on non-agenda items was to recognize that balance of okay, we're voting on something tonight, we want to be able to get to the business of voting, so we'll cap non-agenda items up front at 10 speakers, but then no cap if they are speaking at the end of the meeting.
And if I just want to clarify for some historical reference in terms of where the 7 came from. It wasn't arbitrary per se. I know it was a long-standing practice, even prior to me being on the board, where you could have up to 7 individuals, and as we know, each person gets 3 minutes. So it was 21 minutes per subject matter. So that's where the 7 number came from. It was kind of grandfathered in. Claire.
Oh, can I, one last thing,
Certainly.
this has been just a minor point, but I notice that regularly in the agendas, the first reference to this is called a public communications, and the end of meeting reference to it is comments from visitors, and I've just always wondered why they are phrased differently.
I don't have an answer for that. All right. Claire, you had, yes.
So Gayle, Ethan, and Lorna and I have been on the board when a lot of comments or public members have come in. So at 21 minutes per subject matter, we've had 3 to 4 different subject matters. And at the end of the meeting, as many speakers as possible could go. But after you get 7 people speaking on one subject, and then another subject comes up and you have 7 people, you're getting into an hour before the meeting even begins. Some of the guests have been children who are here, and it gets late into the night. So the newer members of the board have not had any high-impact controversial issue that has shown what happens when that many speakers do come. I do not want to ever discourage people from speaking, but I do feel that it is a business meeting, that we need input on the agenda items, and we want to hear from the public. We do hear throughout the month over and over piles of emails at times, phone calls. So this is not the only way to speak. I don't believe that knowing that you can talk on a subject that's not on the agenda once a month is a hard thing to grasp. And it might take the public a little while to understand that it's the first meeting that you can come about any topic. But after time, I think they could figure it out or read the website and understand that policy.
Jason.
To that point, I have it as an example. Is it self-evident that tonight is the first board meeting of the month? It's at the end of the month. We had a board workshop. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a trivial distinction for someone who's, again, trying to figure out. And my preference is not to place that burden on parents and members of West Hartford in general who want to come and speak to us. The second point I would make is that, yes, while we receive emails, I think it's really different for someone to come in and know that they're talking directly to us, that they see us, that they are engaging with us, as opposed to sending an email.
I just want to say it's funny that you say that, Jason, because when Lorna said that this is the first meeting of the month, when you started the meeting, I was myself confused because I actually thought it was the second meeting of the month, but then, so if I'm confused, I mean, I can imagine how the public could be confused.
Other questions or comments? Again, this is discussion, and we're having robust discussion, which is what it's intended for. All right, well, we'll have this to come before us again for a second reading. I do want to propose one piece, though, actually, to consider in terms of wordsmithing. With the language that's written right here, I do think that it is proposing an extension of bookends, or the lack thereof, that is, with respect to a maximum of 10 persons speaking on non-agenda items. However, there shall be no limit to the number of persons commenting on agenda or non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. I think, and I would suggest for a bit more of some guardrails with that, only because that is even further from where we have been with any policy to date in terms of public comment. So I want to hear if there are any thoughts with how to modify that where it is not as open-ended. Jason?
I'll just add, it was intentionally open-ended.
Duly noted. Any other thoughts or comments? Claire?
So I just want to go on record to say that enforcing this policy, the person who took the biggest burden was the chair. And we have been on the board and watched the chair, I think very gracefully, explain the policy, thank the person for coming, empathize with them being off schedule. And I just think that I want to go on record to say that it has not been hard on other people on the board other than maybe discomfort or uncomfortable, but it has been our chair that has had to deal with enforcing this policy. And also it has been members of the board, not me, that has asked for exceptions to the policy. And I have not been comfortable with having to vote for the exceptions. I was dedicated to following the policy. And I feel that once a month is a good amount of time, and the residents of Avon and Farmington are not silenced because they can't come twice a month to speak to their board.
Appreciate your comments. I will say, with respect to the comment that was made, it certainly, for the board chair, would, if we're talking of ease and comfort, would certainly work well to go with this. But I think it's a responsibility of the chair. Again, the chair is to help with the efficiency of a meeting, to ensure that happens the best possible. And so whether there is a challenge in doing so or not, that is the honor of serving as a chair. There are moments when you have to ensure and enforce things that may be a bit challenging, but nonetheless, those of us who sign up for it, we welcome that. Again, it is an honor to serve in that capacity. It's an honor to serve on the board. And collectively, again, the board collectively makes decisions of how we move forward and how we proceed. And so that is why, again, the discussions had about this policy are well received. I certainly recognize that being on the policy subcommittee, I am in the minority with respect to what changes are being proposed. However, I do certainly respect the democratic process, that even though a decision is being made or proposed that I may not agree with, I certainly respect the process, and therefore we have it before us. And when it comes before us for a second reading, at that time, we will vote. Any other thoughts or comments? Yes, Ethan.
Couple, I'd just like to say, in my mind, whatever feedback we get from the public is a value added. We should be encouraging, not discouraging. I guess I'm missing out on all the emails because there's limited amount of emails recently, but that's fine. But I think it's better, and also I don't think it's a reflection of the chair. I think you've done a good job, but I think it gets crazy trying to say this is an agenda item, this isn't a non-agenda, this is a non-agenda item, and it has led to unnecessary conflict that we should avoid. And for the other towns, and I'm doing this from memory, so I could be off, I believe the other towns only meet once a month. So if we only met once a month, then that would make sense. I just think like I said, I don't want to be a broken record, the more feedback we can get, I think makes us better board members and more knowingly in serving the town. That's all I have. Thank you. And thank the committee, too, for bringing this up.
Well received, thank you, and thank you for your input. And echoing again what Ethan has shared, we certainly do welcome feedback from the public with respect to the proposed policy, so please do share with us. That's why we have a first reading that allows time for what has been proposed for you all to receive it, and in between now and our second reading for us to receive the feedback. So points well taken, Ethan. Thank you. Any other comments or questions with respect to the policy on the floor? All right. So with that, we shall move on with our agenda to B, approval of plans and specifications for Bugby Elementary School roof replacement. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the plans and specifications dated December the 9th, 2024 for the Bugby Elementary School roof replacement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shannon. Discussion. Passing it, Dr. Murrow.
So this is, you've seen similar for this in the past. We did this before with Hall. We've done this before for other schools. Part of the state approval process for school construction grants is the board officially approving the specifications before it goes for review for the state. This is the packet and the plans for Bugby Elementary. This is already included in the CIP, which you received at the last meeting, and is factored into that as well. The roof is 33 years old. We're going to be replacing about 85% of it. It currently is an asphalt and gravel roof. We're going to be replacing it with a rubber membrane. We'll also install new installation and roof drains. We'll also, as part of this, be replacing some of the cafeteria windows and several skylights in the hallways of Bugby. The estimate for this, although it's been budgeted up to $2 million, our current estimate is approximately $1.6 million for this, and we anticipate a February review by the state. We will go out to bid then in early March and award it in April so that we can start this construction the first day when school ends in June. So I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you, Claire. Yes.
So I'm familiar with Duralast and the rubber membrane roofing material. I'm assuming this is heat seamed, and is it a light fabric, or do you know what the color is?
I don't know the color. In the past, what we have done is put the light fabric on there for the heat issues for that. And
Right.
so my assumption would be that we would do similar for this.
Okay, and usually Duralast or the rubber membrane is more expensive, but has a longer life. What's the lifespan for that?
I'm glad I don't have that right offhand, but I will. My understanding is properly, I believe from what we've done in the past, if it's properly installed, the warranty on that is about a 20-year product for that, and we can certainly extend that with the work that we do with our roofs.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Gayle.
So yeah, I had a question. Is the reason this is going out to the state is because they're going to be giving us a grant for this?
Anytime we do a construction project that is considered portions of it that are reimbursable from the state, we submit this to the state. They then have to approve the project. Roofing projects are at our normal reimbursement rate for the state, which is at 38%. So the entire project, assuming it costs $1.6 million, the state will eventually reimburse us years from now, once it closes out, approximately $600,000 of that.
And you might have said, what is the timeline to get that money?
The timeline is our timeline would be quick. The state tends to take a while with their auditing of the construction projects. And so I would anticipate it would probably be a 2 or 3 year reimbursement from the state.
Okay, thank you. And just one last follow-up. So is that true for any roof that we?
That's true for almost every project.
Every project?
Every project. I believe, and Liz could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we finally did the last closeout portion for building Charter Oak 8 years after we opened it.
So any project on the capital improvement
If it's reimbursable, yes,
Oh.
and certain things are reimbursable.
Okay.
Roofs and stuff like that tends to be.
Okay, thank you.
Claire?
There.
There you go.
Yeah, has it already gone out to bid?
No, it will go out to bid. We can't go out to bid until you approve it, then the state approves and reviews it in February. We will go out to bid then in March.
And do you anticipate having trouble finding contractors?
We would hope to be able to find someone to bid on it. As you know, in the past, that has limited us in previous years for different projects. But our goal, we're pretty confident that the way it's been structured, we'll be able to get multiple responses on it.
And because this is town property, but it's an educational setting, that is why you get the reimbursement? Or is this any town building could get the reimbursement?
Well, it depends. This specifically is through the school construction grant process for us. And so roofs are counted under that. The town may have different reimbursements for their projects and such that are not school construction related.
Other question, Ethan?
I had just more a process question. This went through the CIP?
It's currently in the CIP that you received the
That's what I
last
thought.
meeting. Yeah.
So is,
Because it's a planned construction project.
okay, but so why are we looking at it additionally? or-
Because in order for the state to process it and to review it, the Board of Education, we literally have to submit a piece of paper that says, the
Okay.
Board of Education approved these plans on X date by a vote of blank, blank, blank.
So for individual one, okay.
We are, yes,
Okay,
that's how it has to work with that.
all right, thanks.
Other questions or comments? All right, so with the motion on the floor, we shall now proceed to vote. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murrow. Now moving on to adoption of the annual board meeting schedule for 2025 to 2026. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education review and revise as appropriate the proposed annual board meeting schedule and adopt a final meeting calendar for the 2025-2026 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Gayle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Discussion, passing it to our superintendent.
Thank you very much. Board members, you can find the actual schedule on page 52 of your book. And there's not a lot here to really highlight. The proposed schedule for 25-26 follows our traditional pattern of 2 meetings per month, the first and third Tuesday evenings, with the notable exceptions that are in red ink to include our board workshops, to include our public work, our budget workshops, et cetera. The one thing I will note, you'll notice in October there is a singular meeting, and that specifically was to kind of recognize the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, which falls, and possibly you could get away with a meeting, I think, because it's sundown on the Tuesday. The holiday, I believe, is on the Monday, but we just thought it more appropriate to, just in case, not hold a meeting on that first Tuesday of October. So pending any immediate questions, I would turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so very much. Any questions? Yes, Gayle.
Yeah, so I did notice that on Tuesday, April 7th, that is the holiday of Passover. And it also, unfortunately, would be the meeting where we would be adopting the budget. So seems like sort of a important meeting.
I can certainly take a look at that. Let me double check that. I thought we had checked on Passover.
Yeah, because the holiday would start on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, I apologize. The information that we were looking at showed Passover starting on April the 12th. You're saying it starts on April the 7th?
This is for 26, right?
Oh, you know what? You're 26. I may have gotten my year messed up. You're right. Yeah, you know what? I may have gotten that. I'm showing Passover begins April 1st at sundown and ends on nightfall on the 9th, at the 26th. Okay. So yeah, from the 1st to the 9th, you're right. I may have looked at the wrong, we may have just missed that year.
So just for the holiday of Sukkot and the holiday of Passover, which are both week-long holidays, usually people celebrate the first 2 days and the last 2 days.
Yeah, so would that not be the 8th and the 9th?
Well, yeah, it would be the 8th and 9th, but it would start on the 7th. Meaning they celebrate the week, but the days where, no, I'm sorry. But the days where people, typically are really.
Understood. No, I think
Yeah.
I may not have picked up on
Yeah,
the night before because I'm thinking 8 and 9 for the last 2 days.
it starts on the 7th at night. Yeah, I
Not
apologize.
yeah, okay. So it doesn't follow the date, it follows the timeline from sundown.
Yeah, from sundown.
We can certainly bring this back, there's not an issue. I know that in terms of the adoption of the budget itself, obviously, given the calendar the way that it is, sometimes we would shift things by one day to the Wednesday. That's not going to work in the case of Passover. So I can come back to you as a board with options. However, second Tuesday of the month typically is not an option given the conflict with this room with the town council. So I can put some information out to you for some discussion and provide a revised schedule for a vote at a future meeting.
So with that, we'll propose that we table what has been proposed. But I want to say, first of all, thank you very much for raising, and thank you very much, Superintendent Vicinas, for receiving and certainly wanting to respect the religious holidays that are in place, which you already made reference to with the reason for already some proposed modifications. So we certainly know we want to follow due diligence. Thank you so very much in that regard. And so with that, then I'm recommending we table this.
If I may, before you table, I just want to
Certainly.
make sure there are no other recommendations for changes or questions, just so that when we bring it back, we just bring it back.
No, certainly. So yes, any additional thoughts or questions, suggestions, or edits to the proposed schedule we see before us? Claire?
Just checking, November 18th, is that when new board members are seated?
Typically, yes. Typically, after the second meeting in November is when new board members are sworn in, correct? Any other questions or suggestions?
I just have one question. Is it possible to do a Monday meeting, or is that not possible?
To my knowledge, I believe the room may be available, so it's really just a question of availability for the board. So is that a possible suggestion to make it a Monday the 6th?
May I, thank you for being solution focused. May I suggest that we explore and see if it is? We'll table it for now, so that at least when it comes before us, we can make a sound decision at that time.
Okay.
Let me put any objections to us tabling the proposed motion on the floor. All right, thank you so much, Superintendent Vicinas. We'll come back to that at a later time. Now moving on to staff communications and reports, we now shall receive our superintendent's report. Mr. Vicinas, back to you.
Excellent, thank you. And honestly, yeah, it is late in the month of January. This is our first official Board of Education meeting, and it's really it's been a little bit, so it's a pleasure to come here. And so impressed with all of the things that both Sarah and Alexis shared. But the one thing that is sticking in my mind across all of the different things that have happened since we last met is the MLK celebration from yesterday. And so I just want to throw a few more compliments out there to Renee McHugh, Adrian Billings-Smith, Ann McKernan, and really the entire MLK Planning Committee. A huge kudos to LaToya, who's not here. She had the most spirited, captivating MC role. Gratitude and compliments to Conard High School Jazz Band, Jazz Combo, the Hall High School Choraleers, the Voices of Bristow, Conard Senior, Asha Camiso, and Hall seniors Faith Wada and Maxwell St. Aralmond. Those student contributions just made the event truly memorable, truly inspiring, especially in comparison to other MLK celebrations in recent years. So, also a huge thank you to our elementary schools who created the artwork that was on full display in the hallways and will remain on display throughout the remainder of this month and the month of February. So, just a great, great, great day. I very much enjoyed it. Some celebrations and shares. Sedgwick's Select Orchestra First String performs for a large audience of parents, family, and community members at the Wadsworth Athenaeum's annual Festival of Trees and Traditions. First String performed a 45-minute program of holiday and seasonal music, and the performance of the Wadsworth spans nearly 45 years. So it's definitely one of our most treasured traditions. And I will be sending you a little sample link that you can listen to if you like to hear some of that. Kudos going out to Smith STEM and Norfelt Elementary Schools, who took top and second place honors, respectively, in the fall 2024 Connecticut Stock Market game hosted by the SIFMA Foundation. This is a dynamic program that allows students to engage in the complexity of stock trading by managing simulated portfolio and equips young people with essential financial skills and knowledge. Kudos also going out to Kathy Hardesty of Smith STEM for her really amazing and dedicated work on the project. Alexis kind of hit Emily Knowles. I just want to say kudos, Emily, if you're listening, amazing job. And Alexis mentioned the Gold Key Awards that were won by the Hall students. So just a shout out to Rachel Clark and Christina Tantris, who are the visual arts teachers that help to inspire students to really do their best with that. Very pleased for those. I wanted to share, we've recently filed to continue our partnership with CREC in support of prospective special education teachers within the Connecticut Teacher in Residence program. As you know, we've talked about it with our increasing educator diversity. It's one of our strategies. That program is a state-developed recruiting and education program designed to increase the number of teachers of color through formal education and professional learning opportunities for current para-educators. Next year will be our fourth year of participation in the program. It has served as a pipeline, and we're finding really, really great success with it, especially this year as we've shifted some of our focus to finding special educators. And we've got two that are just knocking out of the park, and kudos to their mentor teachers as well. On the topic of special education, the State Special Education Task Force recently published its findings and recommendations, which included a reworking of the educational cost sharing formula to include special education students, as you heard at the workshop. That was not something that is presently included. And again, these are recommendations, not yet changes, but we're hopeful. They also recommended full funding and elimination of the reimbursement tiers for excess cost reimbursement. And as we've heard, that's going to be a driver for not just West Hartford, but all schools across the state. And then some state scrutiny over the rising costs of approved special education programs. And those are only some of the recommendations. So the report itself, I noticed, is not yet posted on the state's website. There is a website dedicated to the task force, but I can make copies of that report available to you. And I will share the link of the state's website if you want to look into that further. The West Hartford Public Schools pre-kindergarten program was formally assessed by the NIAC assessor, who came out and did site visits at Charter Oak, Webb Hill, and Smith. Had the joy of performing those on December the 19th and December the 20th, the 2 days right before the holiday break. But that said, we appreciated the visit. And early indications are, to say positive would be a dramatic understatement. Just incredible site visits, and once we receive the in-depth report, that'll be something that I'll share with you. I want to share that we're partnering with Advance to provide professional learning opportunities in artificial intelligence for our teachers and our instructional leaders. As you know, we've tried to have a focus on computer science, and AI is something within that realm that's definitely an emergent field and nothing that we can ignore. This will be an expert-led session that'll support the district's ongoing focus, support better education in and around digital literacy and what that means for our students in the future, and professional development and support of our teachers to ensure the rigor and the relevance of the curriculum that we provide for students. I'm also excited to confirm a partnership with the University of Connecticut to enhance our Holocaust education through an engaging and exciting virtual experience that features an interactive Holocaust survivor testimony, a virtual reality tour of concentration camps, a photo exposition that focuses on issues of identity. And so teachers within our social studies department will undergo formal training this spring that's facilitated by Professor Dr. Alan Marcus, who works within the NEAG School of Education. And very excited by this. I think it's going to really enhance something. Other than that, I'll just a second reminder, the Foundation for West Hartford Public Schools is hosting a Trivia Night fundraiser coming up on Saturday, February the 8th here at the Town Hall. They had requested advance registration by yesterday. If you missed and still want to go, maybe you can make a call or I can help facilitate, but excited for that. The foundation does so much amazing work for our public schools, and just want to thank them at every opportunity. And that is my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Racines. Questions or comments regarding our superintendent's report? I thank you so much for all that was shared. I want to echo again the sentiment regarding yesterday's celebration. It certainly was a spectacular event, but just want to echo how although MLK Day is celebrated that day, the principles and values and morals of that is something we can certainly recognize year-round. Thank you so much for your constant support of that. And also want to highlight that MLK is not a day off. It's a day on, and there are many persons who volunteer and do other activities in the community just to highlight the importance of Dr. King's legacy. And so thank you for reminding us of that. Any other questions or comments regarding our superintendent's report? All right, we shall now proceed to staff report and board discussions. We now will receive a report from our Pupil Services Special Programming. As the team comes to the table, welcome, seeing lovely faces with smiles as well. All right, and a wave. Wonderful. Mr. Racines, passing it to you.
Great. So as they get settled, you guys certainly know Melissa Caballero, our Executive Director of Pupil Services, and I believe you know Kelly Browse, our newest member of the team, our Assistant Director of Pupil Services. They have three outstanding representatives of some of our specialized programs. I'm going to let them introduce, but I'm super excited to welcome our students here to really speak about and provide you with firsthand information about the quality of programming that is offered and the impact that it has for our learners. So I'll turn it over to you guys for introductions.
Who wants to go first? Hello, my name is Uzo, and I'm a student from post-secondary, and this is my third year at post-secondary.
Hello, my name is Susie. I am a student here at post-secondary, and it's my first year.
Hello, my name is Owen Branning, and this is my second year of being at post-secondary.
Thank you. So we are so fortunate to have our three student leaders joining us today to share a little bit about the program. So Kelly and I are going to start the presentation and give you a general overview, and then we'll have an opportunity for our students to share about their experiences, what they're learning in a day in the life. And we'll invite board members to ask any questions of our student representatives. And then if everybody's okay with it, we'll dismiss them before we go on with our presentation because it is a school night. And we're so happy that you guys were able to join us.
Happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if they can see it.
Oh, Is the projector on?
I'll take a look. Oh, it is. I can see the light.
Oh, there we go. Ta-da! Okay. So one of the things that we look at when we're looking at our specialized programs are some of the drivers that drive our work. And obviously some of those founding principles are in the laws, both federal and state. And so one of the guiding laws is IDEA that ensures the right for students with disabilities to be guaranteed access to education in the least restrictive environment to ensure that they have a free and appropriate education. And districts must, to the extent possible, ensure that students with disabilities are educated with non-disabled students. And that can look different, and we program individually for each student to ensure that along the continuum of services, there is access. And so placements might include fully included with push-in services. It might include pull-out in a resource model where students are receiving some services outside of the classroom with such supplemental supports, but might be included the rest of the day. It might include self-contained settings where students require full-day intensive services. It might include day school placement at an approved special education school, a residential placement, or hospitalized or homebound placements. And so it's important for you to understand that we offer a continuum of services here in West Hartford, and we're excited to share a little bit about those programs today's presentation. And so Kelly's going to talk a little bit about our continuum here.
Thank you. So just as Melissa was saying, we really strive to offer an entire continuum of services, and we talk about it just like in that term she used, least restrictive environment. So the general ed setting, full access to our core curriculum with no accommodations or modifications is where we start, and then we start to layer in what a student might need in order to access that based on their own learning profile. So on that one end of the continuum, we have the least restrictive types of supports, like a consult model. So what that might look like is at the high school, we might have a special education teacher who has a wealth of knowledge about how to accommodate and modify, might consult with the science teacher or the science department to modify some of the instructional strategies they're using for students to access. That's also used at the elementary level, as appropriate as well for students. And then you start to move up to provide more direct services. So we have a co-teaching model. We see it most at secondary level where you are in the general ed setting, you're accessing the core curriculum, but there are two teachers in the room, one of whom is a special education teacher. And they're really, it's not a teacher and a floater, they're two teachers. And the children in that room should really consider both of the teachers that they are their teachers, and they're sharing the responsibility, they're having small groups, and they're able to provide intervention within that general education classroom setting. We get more specialized. That SDI term is specially designed instruction. So it could be a push-in model in the general education setting like Melissa was just talking about. We see that quite a bit, across all levels, depending on the student's needs. It might be a speech service that's being done in pre-K within the play-based centers to really foster and specifically instruct on peer-to-peer discourse and building that type of speech. And it could be, content-based at later levels as well. And then we have a pull-out model, which is where a student might come for specially designed instruction in the special education room. And that's a continuum within of itself, depending on what the student's needs and abilities are. And so we really tailor every decision we make within the PPT, where the parent or guardian is a part of that conversation, to determine what those types of services should be. And then what we're going to talk about tonight are our specialized programs. And I'm really excited to go through that. And I just want to talk about, as far as numbers, we serve just about 2,000 students in West Hartford right now through IEPs, through specialized program, through our services, our continuum of services. Within that, as you know, 130 of our students are actually in out-of-district programs, so that's beyond what we'll be talking about tonight, but that's counted in that overall number of students. And so those are students who we've identified, really have a specific need within their profile that can be met in a certain setting. But those are significantly restrictive because there's no general ed peers in those out-of-district settings. So we're thrilled that West Hartford has the support to really design creative, intensive solutions for our students and programs through our specialized programs, because they, I just feel like it's one of the best things we do for kids, because it doesn't close any future doors on access to our community and making sure that they're able to access the general ed population and classrooms as much as it works for them, and that might differentiate day to day, month to month, year to year. So tonight we're going to go through what those specialized programs are. In all, we currently have 480 students in West Hartford in these programs. So from our youngest 3-year-old learners in the Early Learning Center through the Intensive Academic Learning Center that is K-8. Intensive Behavior Learning Center is also K-8. And then our high school program, which is Strive, and then our school engagement program also at the high school level. And we are going to actually start with our oldest, wisest students here in the post-secondary program tonight. And we're thrilled that Owen, Uzo, and Susie will be sharing some insights with you, which will probably be the most interesting part of the presentation.
It absolutely will be. So just to share a little bit as an overview of our post-secondary program, our post-secondary program services students ages 18 through 22, and students are afforded the full year of which they are 22 within the transition-only services program. We housed across 2 different sites, and we have our own vocational site. So we have 2 classrooms situated here at Town Hall and 3 classrooms at Cogswell Building, which is located on the American School for the Deaf campus. The program is designed to support students as they transition to adult life in activities of daily living, vocational training, career exploration, and college pursuits, should they so choose. And really, it's about self-agency and actualization as our young adults turn into adults and develop those skills. So I'm going to turn it over to the stars of this presentation to share a little bit maybe about what a day looks like, maybe something exciting in the program, and something you've learned.
So I guess my daily day in the program is basically I go to a job site, and there's always a different job site depending on the day. Mostly. It's not always the case. But yeah, so basically what I do there is I learn vocational job skills, pretty much. And I forget what else. What else was I gonna say? Oh, what was the other thing you said? Like, there's what my daily day looks like. What was the other thing?
What's your favorite thing you do in the program?
Oh, my favorite thing. I guess I just like social interaction. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's something else too, but I forget.
We could come back to it.
Thanks.
Want to let Uzo go?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then we
sure.
Can come back to you, Owen?
Sounds good.
All right. Hello, everybody. So, my daily day at post-secondary looks like I go to job sites like the Next Chapter, Yukon Health, and Tuesdays I go on community. So they teach us I don't know, but yeah, we do go on commute. Me and Owen go on, and Susie go on community on Tuesday. We go to restaurants, we go to stores, and we go to shops, and yeah. Right. And they also teach us about budgeting, and they also teach us about advocating for ourselves. They also teach us about hygiene, getting ready for work, transportation, etc. And thank you, everybody.
A day-to-day life for me at post-secondary would be going to work. Every Friday, I go cooking usually, so we go to Big Y, we get our groceries, and we have to work on following a recipe and finding one our whole class would agree on. And we would work on budgeting like $10 for each person at the store, and then one person would pay, and then we would all have to pay back after. And before that, we usually go to the bank to cash our checks.
Yeah, so I kind of, so I got back that thing that I was thinking of. Something I've learned. Uh, well, one thing I struggled with was balancing efficiency with quality. I preferred quality over efficiency, so I took a lot longer on job sites and it cost me precious time. But uh, at the next chapter, that started to change. Um, I guess my job coach there told me to work easier, not harder, and maybe don't overthink it. That's what they all say. I do overthink things a lot, but this program has really helped me with that, and for that I'm grateful. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else.
One more thing
Sure.
I'd like to share. They also teach us about uh, kind behaviors and how we should treat others, manners, like not thinking people's with disabilities as stereotypes, because obviously that's a terrible thing. All right, that's all I had to say.
Thank you for adding that. Owen brought up a great point. So one of the elements of our program is that we have job coaches. So we have very talented special education teachers who run the classrooms, but our job coaches are the staff that actually go on vocational sites with students, and they're there to help them learn the jobs and navigate the jobs. And as many of our students will tell you, that part of the vocational training is about developing skills that are transferable. So there are times that we're at job sites we might not love, right? And that's part of the experience too, because it might be a field of work that they really like or are interested in and want to pursue, but the work site itself might be too noisy or too quiet, might be too isolating, might be too social. So there's a lot of conversations about vocations, not just an area of interest, but what's the right job site or career track that students might be on, and how do they weigh the pros and cons of each job. And so there might be preferred job sites and there might be less preferred job sites, but that's part of the exploration of vocational training. And as you heard through some of their experiences, a lot of the work is around independence and working on activities of daily living like cooking and budgeting and really setting them up for success in adult life. All right. Would you guys be comfortable if some of the Board of Education members wanted to ask questions about the program?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'll open it up to questions for our fabulous students.
I had heard that you guys learned to use public transportation on your own, and I even heard that sometimes the coaches or teachers might follow the bus and make sure you get off at the right stop. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, because we have an app, the transit app, so we have to like find the place we're going, and then we could use different bus routes. And if we've been on that route before but still need like help, we usually have our teacher like drive behind us. But when we start to get more used to it, they usually have us go on our own, and they would drive to meet us there.
Teammates, other questions for our wonderful presenters here? Yes, Shannon.
First of all, just thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It's really great to meet all of you. Is there anything in the program that you wish you could do more of, or is there something you don't get to do that you would help you feel like you're being prepared for what comes next?
Honestly, I think it teaches us everything we need to learn.
Not that I know of.
So I understand that the Unified Theater and Unified Sports programs, I know, Susie, you've been a participant of that. Are there many students that still do things within the system, and what are some of the opportunities where they can be with mainstream peers that they might have gone to school with?
Me and my friend Genesis, we do Unified Theater and all the sports together, and we still do it, but we still like email like our coaches, our teachers from the original high school to help us like find out about the info, scheduling, and we would get rides there at night to our to where the program is held.
Is Circle of Friends also something that you can still do?
Yes. Oh, it is. I never did
Also,
Circle.
last year, they introduced Best Buddies to this post-secondary program, which is at UHart. Which I went there before, and this is my second time going there. And honestly, it's great. And it teaches us how to be friends with people without disabilities and with disabilities, which is excellent.
No questions, but I just wanted to thank you, one, for being here. I think this is absolutely wonderful for the community to get to see you all succeed and really thrive in this program. You guys are such wonderful ambassadors for that program and out in the community, and it reminds us, too, of why we're here in large part. On a personal note, I want to thank you because the next chapter really helped me out during my Christmas shopping, so you guys were wonderful, so thank you for that.
No problem, sir.
Other questions or comments? Ethan.
So I know I've been to the next chapter. What other retail places do you have you worked at?
All right. I've worked at Yukon, CVS, and Burlington, Bird Code, Chick-fil-A, and I think that's all I can remember that I've worked
All right, thank you.
on.
There's also Collins Medical on 95 Woodland Street, Norfelt, which I heard you guys talking about, and some others too. What else is there? There's Ocho. I worked there before. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much everything else he said too. That's pretty much all I can. Oh, wait a minute. Whiting Lane. I don't work there, but she does. That's pretty much all I can think of at the moment. But yeah.
Great, thanks, Ellen.
I just wanted to echo some of my colleagues up here. Thank you so much for coming. It's so nice that you're able to tell us about the program you're in, and it's really helpful for us to hear about it. So thank you for being here.
Are you in need of other businesses, and what can the West Hartford community do, or who do they reach out to if they would like to give other placements? I know that some of these jobs could be a future job for the students, and who do they reach out to if a business is interested?
So we are so fortunate that we have Beth Patinelli. She's our full-time transition coordinator, and her sole job is working with the community to find job sites near and far. She works very closely with students around their individual interests and really asks students what their vocational goals are and their career paths, areas of interest, so that she could find those right job sites. But we're always looking for partners. As you heard, that's not even an exhaustive list. We are so fortunate that in our immediate community we have such a great partnership with our community business owners who are willing participants and partners to support our students as they gain independence and work exposure and experience in the vocations. But we're always interested in expanding our partnerships. So Beth Patinelli would be our transition coordinator, who would be the primary contact to facilitate that job site acquisition.
Other questions or comments? Well, I will share and echo as well what has been shared. I'm going to look at each and every one of you for you to know how proud we are of you, for you to come and to share what you're doing and to speak with such confidence. Oh, you make us so very proud. a question for you. Yes, we are proud of you, but are you proud of yourself and why?
Yes, because I feel confident in myself. I'm pushing myself to strive. I'm like, Uzo, you can do this. Push through. And yeah, I managed to strive and succeed. And yeah, that's all I need to say. Susie?
I think what I am proud about myself most is being able to go to different jobs, because before I had friends that had jobs and I'm like, I never did that in my life. So I'm happy to be able to go to different job sites and learn.
I'm glad you asked me that question. And the truth is, I'm more than proud of myself. And you want to know why? Because I guess it's not easy to be proud of myself when there's all these labels going on around. And I guess that really brings my self-esteem down, but you know what I can do? I can bring, such as disability, I can flip that around to different ability or maybe even superpower. Yeah. So yes, I am very proud of myself, and I could never be prouder.
Oh, Owen and Uzi and Susie, oh my goodness. Is it okay? Can we give you a round of applause, please? Thank you so very much. We continue to be proud of you, and thank you for representing West Hartford Public School so well. We can learn so much from you all. Thank you so very much. Thank you. All right. Round of applause again. Thank you.
I don't really want to follow that. They did such an excellent job, and you could see how we're so proud of our students, the skills they're acquiring. The ability for them to sit at the board table and be able to describe the program and feel comfortable and confident engaging in discourse and field questions that are unscripted is just a reflection of the work that's being done in the program to really build their self-confidence, their ability to engage with peers and with adults and be responsive in that way. And so that's really what we see across our entire program. We're so proud of our students and the work that our teachers and team members are doing, and these three students are an example of their student body that they represent and the work that is being accomplished. So thank you for allowing them to come to the board table, and I'm going to move us along to our next program.
Okay, so hopefully our preschoolers are in bed, so they won't be joining us tonight. But we are going to highlight the remainder of our specialized programs for you without students. So we'll hit the highlights, and then you can certainly ask questions. But you look at our oldest students and all they accomplish and all they have ahead of them and all the skills they've developed over time. And it's so important for us to think about that as we look at our youngest learners in our ELC program. So in our Early Learning Center, we have students in pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. We have 2 sites, Aiken and Whiting Lane. There are about 37, I think, students at Aiken and 120 at Whiting Lane. So these are students who come to us either with identified needs and services out of birth to 3. So when they turn 3 years old and they have identified needs from birth to 3, they come right to us. Or there is some question as a 3 or 4 or maybe even a 5-year-old if they're a burr baby, a term we all know now very well, right? And they would be referred to our team. And we have a fabulous diagnostic team at that early learning center level who will go out into the community, have PPTs, and really determine if there are needs for a child who might not be in our program yet. So the Early Learning Center has it's multi-model. There's a morning program, an afternoon program, and hopefully the through line you hear over the course of this presentation is how individualized our decisions are for our students, because some students do attend both morning and afternoon if they need their services given in over the course of a day. They'll get related services if that's a need of theirs, OT, PT for fine motor, gross motor, speech therapy. We also have itinerant speech students, so students who might be in a private preschool and have an identified speech need. They might come to us for their services a certain amount of times a week as well. So we cover transportation for that also. So all those pieces are in there as part of our early learning center. The classrooms themselves, we have integrated teachers. So there's students who have identified needs and are served under an IEP with peer models in those integrated rooms. And we also have intensive special education teachers as well who might be providing more intensive supports for students who are still developing some certain access skills for the pre-K rooms and those skills for that level of learning. One of the things that might seem like they're just starting to talk about now for our pre-K4 students, but actually they've been talking about for a long time is transition to K. And so a lot of the work that gets done, in the pre-K is really thinking about that time, getting them ready for kindergarten. And in fact, our incredible department supervisor for the ELC, Melissa Cook, she's really talking to us in October and November about specific children and what they're going to need and what we should be thinking about for the year ahead, so that our programs are well equipped for the students to make as much growth as possible and get everything that they need as they transition, and of course to partner with families. So just next week, we have our first big event where we're welcoming those families as a whole district to really understand that every child is a West Hartford child, and whether they have specialized services or not, they should be coming to these events because their children are going to benefit from being side by side with children across town next year in the program. So we're excited that those transition meetings are both across the district, and then we have specialized meetings as well for parents to get a little more information about services at the elementary level. Anything to add on, ELC?
So as students move from the Early Learning Center into our K through 12 programming, that programming transitions to our continuum. So some students are serviced in the resource model, which might be push-in, might be pull-out services. But our specialized program, one of them is called the Intensive Academic Program. And that program is a small group of students with a high student ratio. It's an integrated model, meaning that the services are high density dosage with specialized teaching techniques. Students still have a traditional classroom with their general education peers, and they're integrated to be meaningfully integrated across the school day as their schedule and services allow through their individualized program. One of the great things about our intensive academic programming is that our teachers are so highly trained. We use specialized curriculum, we use specialized evaluation models, and a lot of our students might be using an augmentative communication device, which means that we have high involvement with our speech and language pathologists to provide them with ways to communicate that might be low tech with a communication board, like a PEC system, that might be high tech depending on the student's developmental skill level, where they might be using an iPad as their talker and they navigate their day that way. We're so fortunate that our school communities really embrace our students. At all of the elementaries, we also have modified specials, which teach the precursor skills, so students might be able to integrate into a PE class or a music class or an art class, but it's a smaller, more specialized programming. We also provide unified sports during the day at the school. That eliminates any disparity so that families who might not otherwise be able to participate because students might be accessing robust after-school services and or activities in sports are able to participate with their general education peers. We have a really big event that comes up in April where we have our big unified sports event. So I'd just like to put that out there, and I'll send that information through Paul so I can make you aware of that date, but it's a really great celebration. In addition to all of our unified theater offerings, we also have the sports component as well. We do have Unified Theater, which I think was actually founded here in the town of West Hartford, and it's such a great program. I've had the great honor and privilege of attending. If you ever see me at them, I'm usually crying in the back somewhere because it just moves me because it's such just a beautiful inclusive opportunity. But the work that's really being done in our intensive academic programming is really integral to our students' success. And this programming has become much more technical. So with discrete trial and applied behavior analysis teaching techniques. And as we look at our student trends, right now we're currently servicing 179 students in our intensive academic model. That's K through 12. That doesn't include our early learning center or our post-secondary program. This is our fastest growing program demographic in terms of student needs. And so as we're looking and monitoring trends and the students that we're receiving, whether it's through move-ins or if it's through the Burst to 3 model and our pre-K, we're really just seeing that this is an area where we will continue to grow in response to student needs to provide programming. Because the services are integrated across the day, it allows for a lot more transition of skills across different providers and different settings. So if a student's acquired a skill, with one teacher, transitioning that across multiple teachers, different paraeducators, across related service providers becomes very important for students to acquire those skills to apply at home and alternative settings as well.
Another intensive program that we provide here in district is our intensive behavior programs. This really falls under the social emotional learning umbrella of our work. You can see we have about 42 students currently K-8, so that's at our 2 sites at Braeburn and Morley at the elementary level, and then King Philip and Sedgwick both have 1 room of students who can be serviced across grade levels. So this program focus is really for the students who, because of a diagnosis or a disability or a life experience, may be having trouble accessing the general education classroom and curriculum in its entirety, and would benefit greatly from growth in skills around self-awareness, self-management, maybe interpersonal skills, coping skills, things that, sometimes develop without intervention and sometimes use intensive intervention to develop. And we firmly believe that our programming has the ability to make sure all students can develop these skills despite, whatever might be in their way at the time of entering a program like this. And so we have these programs are specialized because they have higher support from our BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. So they're really overseeing every single student's programming and monitoring it at a close level to really check in on what's working for a child to make sure they're having more of that in their program so that we're seeing success begets success. And so that's how we're going to build those skills for them and have as much access as possible to their general education classroom and peers. But then they have that self-contained room for when they need it and when they want to access it. And that programming that happens, outside of the general education setting is really, really individualized. Some of our rooms have basketball hoops and cozy corners and quiet spaces and things that are preferential to the child so that they can really feel safe and calm, because we know that this type of instruction is really grounded in the most important thing is relationships. And so we know that the students need to feel cared for, a sense of belonging, which you'll hear us talk about across presentations because that really is at the core of student success. And so providing it in this intensive way ensures that they really can foster those connections to receive quality intervention and really make sure that they're accessing as much as possible. And it's just so wonderful to see students grow both maturationally and also through intervention to become amazing contributors to our school communities as they develop. And so I mentioned that that's a K-8 program. We have a 9 through 12 program specific to our SEL intervention, the intensive intervention called STRIVE. So Success Through Responsibility, Initiative, Vision, and Education. We have 32 students currently at STRIVE, which is located at the Cogswell building. So it's adjacent to our post-secondary program, connected. It's a building, but kind of 2 separate sites in one on the ASD campus. And, we have a capacity of 40. So we are continuously, seeing this as an option for students. I have the benefit of sitting in PPTs where students are present. And what I hear the most is how, that relationship piece that they know they're going to be afforded through this, this intensive program is something that is a driver for wanting to really engage in the work that has potentially been difficult over time at that high school level, complete work, access their classes, and be an engaged student. And I think while we have students who are individualized in programming in that they may attend some classes at their home high school, Hall or Conard, and then go to Strive for certain courses as well. But we have 4 special education teachers, so they're getting credit-bearing courses right there in the program. We have a student support specialist who is looking at every individual program. We had the benefit of talking with her a bit today. And just to hear her talk about how each child, they're really thinking about, well, is the first time, in the morning when they come into the building, is that the time when they should really be meeting with that clinician, because that's when they're most excited and open to talk. And those individual decisions that happen to maximize a child's day is happening. We also have a program coordinator and a site administrator. So it's a really great program and a great team, a tight-knit team. And I think that's one of the benefits of this program is students really feel like they're a part of something where they feel trust, they feel safe, and it's not too big of a population and environment where they, there's some unknowns there, and they might still be developing some of those coping skills, self-management skills that are easier to utilize and access in a smaller setting. So it's one of our very special programs here in district. Anything to add to that?
I do just want to add that we have 2 student representatives that couldn't make it tonight, and so they've actually filmed a little interview to share with you a little bit about their program. So I'm going to email those to you so you can hear 2 of our students talk a little bit more about Strive. But if you're ever interested in visiting, I would love to welcome you to come take a tour, visit, meet with our students. They are such great advocates for themselves. And the only other thing I'll add is that through our student coordinator, we really look at, with our student specialist, when it's appropriate to matriculate back to the high school. And that's basically a semester by semester conversation, because as our students acquire credits, they might choose to take credits that they need towards graduation or an elective at the home high school. And so it's a completely flexible schedule for them, depending on what their interest is and where they feel comfortable. And so some of our students start the day at Strive and finish the day at Hall or Conard, or vice versa, or they might leave Strive for one period of the day in order to take a class or an elective. So really, we're a completely flexible site, even though we're off-site, and it gives students the opportunity to do both. We have students who fully matriculate back to their home high schools, and we have students who choose to finish out their high school at Strive. And so it's just an individual conversation about readiness, comfort level, and how do we ensure that the students are successful and meet graduation requirements. Students who participate in Strive also can participate in all sports and activities at their home high schools, and they do take advantage of that and are participatory in any of the offerings. So that's still really good to see as well. All right, so moving on to another high school program, we have the School Engagement Program. The School Engagement Program was designed to support students who might have become disengaged or have chronic absenteeism from school, mostly from with work around mental health related resources. These programs are run by our clinicians. They were historically located off-site. But as we always look at our programs, we're looking to revise them, to improve them. One of the things that we noticed is that our students were attending, which was, we were very, very happy that it answered that first question, was how do we get them re-engaged in school? But we weren't able to offer them robust offerings because they were off-site and didn't have access to a lot of electives, some of the more rigorous core content classes. And so by bringing them back to the public schools, back to the comprehensive high schools, we've really been able to continue to use that successful model to really support students who've become disengaged or might be having difficulty navigating, whether it's anxiety, depression, or just fears about reintegrating into a large comprehensive high school. So it's a very small setting run by our clinician and supported by special education teachers to really help students, integrate to their level of comfort. And again, this program is very, very flexible. So there might be a plan, but maybe a student receives a text message on their way into school that really changes their current ability to access class, and they have access to the school engagement classroom with a clinician and their support, and they're able to leverage that for maybe periods 1 and 2, touch base with the clinical support, and then maybe return to their regularly scheduled day. So again, whatever the student needs, we're there to respond to it and really support them as they access the curriculum and work towards their graduation requirements and have access to all of the same courses that are offered in the comprehensive high school. And so that's been a very successful program model. It's a very small program. We have about 10 students in each comprehensive high school that are accessing the program at any given time. That can vary up to 12. There are students who fluctuate in and then fluctuate back out depending on their need, and we're just responsive to that. One of the highlights of the program that's been really helpful is really the wraparound services that are provided to the family and outside interventionists, whether that's therapists, medical providers. It's very helpful for there to be a continuous loop of support and good communication, high level of contact with families and communication about a student's day to really support them in being successful in both their academic and self pursuits.
So I think as we think about our specialized programs, we always keep in mind that along with aligning with our district equity policy, we're talking about all students and every child every day. And, you know, when you look at kind of the difference between equality and equity, and there's been different visuals about this over time, but, you know, we firmly believe that a description of a program and what gets put on paper about our programs is not just going to fit every child. We have to be equitable and really ensure that it's tailored to the unique needs of each individual. So one child's experience in a program is going to look different from their elbow partners at the table in that same program because that's equitable. So, you know, I just want to reinforce that we're really thinking about each child as who they are as an individual, what's going to be as accessible as possible and really promote the most growth as possible. And that's difficult conversations over time as you have these little people who we're not sure, you know, as a parent, you always think about what will it be like as they get older. And then we have the privilege of seeing just how fabulous our students are as they grow. So, you know, we so appreciate the partnership and the trust that we have with families, but we really believe that staying equitable to our students to make those individualized choices for them within our specialized programs is really what West Hartford does best. So we're very proud of the work that our incredible teachers do in these programs.
And on that note, you know, one of the things I think that's led to the success of the program is the continuous improvement model as we look at the students that we are serving and how we can best serve them. And so we will continue to be responsive to any federal or state legislative changes, and we have seen those in more recent years that impact our work and how we think about programming, and also any mandates that come through. But in addition to that, you know, with our model of continuous improvement, we're always looking at what are our students needing and how can we support them and how can we as the educators ensure that we're giving them high quality instruction with rigorous goals and targets that are meaningful to them. And so as we look at program advancement, we're going to be looking at our models of programming and really asking those questions. Through work with our stakeholders and our parents, we really receive feedback that would be helpful for them to have more forward-facing communication about our programming, what the program entails. And so we'll be engaging in a process of kind of undertaking that and really having some clear guidelines around, you know, what is entailed in a program. Obviously, every student's program will be individualized, but this will be along the efforts of really kind of trying to be as transparent as possible. What are some of the scientific research approaches we're using? Who are the consultants we leverage when we're looking to advance instructional practices? What's the most updated research on curriculums and assessments for students in these different programs? And how can we leverage some of the great work that's being done in the field and bring that here to West Hartford if it's not already an integral component of our program? And so we're really looking forward to continuing to review what's working in our programs and, if necessary, make any advancements to ensure that we're always being responsive to our students, their growth, their needs, and, you know, including parents as partners in that journey as well. But we're very proud of the success of our programs, and we're looking forward to continuing to do that work in the future. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Teammates, questions, comments regarding the wonderfully informative presentation? Gayle.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a question about the caseloads for the OT speech therapists and that group of people that work in the schools. Is there a cap on the caseloads for OT and PT and speech therapy? I don't know about PT, but maybe speech therapy.
So I can't speak to the direct caseload numbers on the spot, but we do look at those annually, especially when we're budgeting. We're looking at what's appropriate, what are the industry standards, and we continue to be responsive to that. I think we just added an OT, was it last year or the year before? So we continue to be responsive to that, and the related services grow along with the program. And so I think it's important to note that because the programs are all integrated and our students we see require more related services, that's always a factor when we see our numbers growing in the program. So if we're projecting an increase in an intensive academic program, you'll likely also see a request for an increase in related services because we know that those two things are part of the program.
So there isn't an actual cap, you just hire more staff if needed, but you don't
Correct.
cap like saying, they can only see this many cases.
No, but I think that our caseloads are well within like the standard for the area. We look at that together, and I'm always checking in with our related service providers around, where they're feeling stretched and, what is. So there's a governing body for all three of those disciplines. ASHA oversees speech and language, and they really talk about, caseloads, caseload size, what the role of a speech and language pathologist is in public education, because all three of those disciplines are actually medical. So they span the world of educational and medical, and those are very different in a public school. And so we're always looking at that and looking at research. One of the things that came out in the task force, and I hope they'll do this, is updating guidelines. Those three domains are areas of which are in need of the State Department of Education updating guidance. So we'll always be responsive to that. And that's why I listed it as one of the components for our continuous improvement is, if the state were to release new guidance or guidelines that would dictate some of the caseload size or service provision, those would be things that we would want to make sure we're attending to.
Okay, thanks. And I can just ask one other question. How many kids are in the school engagement program?
Right now, it's estimated at about 20. I think, depending on where students are, they kind of circulate in and circulate out. But, 10 to 12 approximately in each of the programs based on any given snapshot.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Shannon, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was really informative. I'm curious, just especially with the post-secondary transition program, with that group of students in particular, I would think you'd be really interested in knowing what comes. I mean, we want to know what happens with all students, but after all of the progress, I'm curious how you think about that warm handoff, if you're seeing resources available so that they can continue to build off their successes, and do we know where they ultimately end up? That would be really interesting information.
So we are very fortunate because we have such great relationships with the community, and we're part of that community. So some of our students, actually one of our former students was hired by West Hartford Public Schools and works for us now. But depending on their career and vocational tracks, we do usually have a very warm handoff. So we've actually had students leave the program early because they've been accepted into college. We've had students who've secured full-time jobs, and so they can no longer participate with us. And so they're making those decisions kind of along their path. We do rely on partnerships with the Department of Developmental Services and Bureau of Rehabilitative Services, which are two agencies who really support our adults as they move on from public education and in the community. So they will kind of take on some of the responsibility of supporting job sites, job training, vocational supports, finding jobs, and really providing families and students with what they need. We really try at a very young age. I'm always encouraging families, even as early as elementary school, to attend an annual spring series around transition. And every year we have different speakers. We just had Jane Brown, who is a well-known, actually West Hartford resident who supports college transition for students with disabilities and provided an excellent, very well-attended presentation about how parents and students can be thinking about the college experience and what services will be provided to them. But throughout the entire spring, we put forward a transition series, and it can be everything from a judge who comes to talk about conservatorship and guardianship, which is what some of our families need to be thinking about as their students turn the age of majority. And then we've also provided things like Jane Brown's discussion around college and career readiness. So it really just depends, but having agency involvement becomes very important to make sure that there is a warm handoff if there isn't a clear job that's been secured, or if a student isn't going to be matriculating into higher education.
Claire, yes. So thank you for the presentation. And I just have to say the breadth and the diversity of all these different programs really shows how you meet the needs of so many different students. And if it weren't for some of these, I think our outplacement numbers would be much higher. And I know that part of the philosophy is not can you do something, but how can we help you do it? And so I've seen some great things with the kids in the program. I'm not sure if you know the history of it, but about 20 years ago, there was the adjusted curriculum program. And it seems to me that in the intensive academic program, kids are a little different than they were 20 years ago, but 20 years ago, it started getting moved out of Duffy because you didn't have enough applicants, or that's what, we weren't getting enough students for the program. So can you speak to the transition of the adjusted curriculum program compared to the intensive academic program?
I actually don't have any familiarity with it, so I can't speak to the adjusted curriculum model. Do you have any familiarity? No, Paul?
I can speak briefly. My experience with the adjusted curriculum program is more at the high school level than at the elementary. So I know that over the course of years, we really looked to, I was a math teacher at the time, and we were working with the pupil services department and sort of looking to say, are we setting the right expectations for our students, and can we do more through an integrative model with modifications and adjustments to have them pulled into general education classrooms more frequently? And so and I think math was one of the last kind of holdouts on some of the AC model. So there was a real effort over the period of years to have that be more integrated. And I would agree that the students that are in the intensive academic program are definitely of a different set of needs that, as described in both the report and during this presentation, is something that's been customized and individualized to support the very specific needs of those individuals, as opposed to what really had been taking the core academic curriculum and, as the name implies, adjusting it to support those learners. I think we really have differentiated that so that the students that are now in our IA program, they will come out of that to integrate for different pieces, but to the greatest extent possible, having more time with non-disabled peers and just creating those modifications. I think that's something that we were able to do over the period of years. I don't know if that answers.
Right. I mean, the qualification was two grade levels below in academic subjects, and then you qualified. But so now it sounds like it's more of a intensive special education needs rather than behind in academics. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Oh, yes, Gayle.
Yeah, I had just one question about budget, and I know this wasn't exactly the focus of your presentation, but what are your thoughts about the potential influx of students coming in in September because of the state changes in kindergarten ages, and how that's going to affect the needs of special services.
That's such an excellent question, and it gives me the opportunity to share some additional data that wasn't part of the presentation, but I think it's just important for you to be aware of. So in addition to our in-house trends, we also see a trend with our move-ins. So between July 1 and December 1, we had 74 move-ins with individualized education plans, 23 of which went right to our more intensivized programs. So we really do see a higher density of students just requiring that level of service. And then when we look at trends within our district of students that we know are here, we anticipate they're going to stay, we're already looking at a larger group matriculating from our early learning center to kindergarten next year. We have currently, I think it's 24 students who will go from pre-K into our intensive academic or intensive behavioral programming. Actually, all 24 of them are just intensive academic. So that's a very large cohort. And we don't have as many students leaving the elementary to move up to middle school. So we do see a trend, and we see that really at the youngest ages. So we typically in the early learning center end the year around 120 students, and that's our June number. That's our current number. And so we're just seeing a much higher number of students in our intensive programming, students who require services, and that's aligned with our incidence rate trend. But we see a trend within the trend, which is that we see a higher rate of students requiring more intensivized services to be able to access their learning and develop activities of daily living and self-care skills and work towards independence. And we also couple that with the budgetary question which you asked, which is such a good question because in special education, we're seeing the state and through the Special Education Task Force hopefully prioritize special education funding at the legislature, which they're just in session now. But we're really seeing that the funding for special education is not in our ECS monies, and we rely on our excess cost grant, which means that after we spent 4.5 times our per pupil expenditure, that the state would provide us the funding after that. The federal mandate, requires 100%. But as I've shared at this board table, it's never been fully funded. In past years, we've been funded around 70, almost 80%. Last year, the state came out with a tiered system. We anticipated, I think we were set to have 85%, and we came in at 67%, which was a massive shortfall in the middle of the fiscal year and left us recalibrating with our ESSER funds, which were already earmarked for some other projects. And it really put us in a precarious situation to be able to cover that funding despite the fact that we had budgeted, I think, very fiscally responsive to the information that was provided. Similarly, this year we budgeted conservatively, kind of around that 67%, knowing that that's what it was last year, kind of anticipating that we would hopefully at least come in at that mark, even though they were still saying they had this tiered system. And we were disappointed to learn just recently that they're only funding 62%. Some districts are receiving funding as low as 58% of the excess cost grant. And it really is, it's disappointing to see that happening to our most vulnerable learners and impacting districts across the state and our students. And so, I'm hoping to bring some information to our parents so that they can be advocates for their children and really mobilize around efforts to provide testimony during the legislative session to ensure that our voices are heard relative to excess cost grant funding and funding of special education through traditional practices.
Other questions or comments? If I must say, Gayle, I appreciate the question as well that you raised, and I very much appreciate the candid response that was given. And we hope those that are either here or listening have heard the plea. We need all hands on deck when it comes to advocating for the wonderful services we provide, as we certainly witnessed earlier today with our wonderful students. So as we are in the budget season, and we certainly will have more conversations about that. Again, all hands on deck to advocate for what our students deserve. And I will say I very much appreciate with your visual of equity and equality. That's a new one. I've seen various kinds, but that one I appreciate how it shows the forward movement, but doing so with the lens of equity. So thank you so very much. And thank you again for your presentation. And with that, we shall proceed to routine matters. Moving on to our financial report. Approval of the financial report for the period ending November 30th, 2024. Seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the financial report for the period ending November 30th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jason. Discussion. So who among us gives us the honors of presenting today? Ethan. All right, Ethan, you're on deck.
Report in the presentation or the book is for November, for fiscal year 25, or November 24. At this point, the fiscal year is projected to end with a positive $50,000 in the general fund. The general fund in the current fiscal year is budgeted for $200.8 million. We are only 4 months into the fiscal year, so there will probably be additional changes. But this is as of November, and so what follows in December hasn't been included. In the first category, the general fund, we have a positive projected variance of $150,000 out of a full year budget of $129 million in the general fund. In the first category, which is the teachers. The large positive variances are in teacher subs, a positive $250,000. And teachers' assistant salaries, a positive $200,000. On the negative side, offsetting that is a negative variance of $300,000 in paraprofessional salaries. The second category, the general fund benefits, which is budgeted at $38.2 million, is currently projected to come in at budget. The third category, purchase services, with a budget of $31.6 million, is projected at the current time to have a negative variance of $100,000 at year end. And then finally, the general fund with a budget of $200.8 million is projected at this point in time in the end of November to have a positive $50,000 variance. Although as noted, we're only 1/3 into the year. In terms of grants, the next category, state and federal, the district had $4.7 million that are expected to be expensed the current fiscal year, and $335,000 that are targeted beyond the current fiscal year. But nothing out of the norm there. In terms of special funds, there are 10 sets of different funds, and they combined, they're scheduled to end, or they ended the year at $1.665 million, and with the exception of interest, funds are expected to stay flat, with each fund's annual expenditures being offset by each fund's revenues for the year. The exception of interest income, which had a $96,000 variance projected for the fiscal year. And then the final set of funds was the nutrition service funds. In terms of the nutrition service fund balance at the end of November, there was a fund balance of $3.6 million, approximately $200,000 higher than the prior year. It is anticipated that the money in the funds will be used in the future for dining setup of Hall High School and for the redesign of Conard High School. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Ethan, and please pardon Liz. Wonderful to see you at the table as well. Thank you. Teammates, any questions regarding our financial report? Yes, Claire.
Yeah, Liz, could you help me understand that? I know, are the IDEA and the title grants the main federal grants that we have?
Those are the main federal grants, as well as our title grants, Title I, Title II, et cetera. And we received the award letters for those in December. So you'll see those on our next report. But the IDEA is certainly our largest federal grant.
So this is for, these monies have been guaranteed, or are in-house or will be coming in-house for this school year?
Yes, we have received award letters on those, and so they are guaranteed. We draw them down as we spend those funds, and so we bring them in each month to cover expenditures.
Okay. So right now, based on my calculations, it's about 65% of our our grants are the IDA and the title grants. Just keeping an eye on any changes, if there are any changes in federal legislation on some of these grants, do we know when that impact might happen?
I don't know at this point in time. It would have a significant impact on us. We do fund numerous positions with grant funds, so if there were any changes to those grants, certainly would have material impact, but we would have to wait to hear from the state as they administer these grants for us.
So the state administers the $3 million in federal funds?
Exactly.
And so do they then administer them, we would find out in December of next year if they're affected, or?
I think if there were material changes, we would be notified of that prior to that time, certainly as soon as they heard. But they generally notify us in keeping with the federal fiscal year, which starts October 1st.
So from now until October 1st, 2026, these funds are ones we can count on. But the next bunch of funds are the ones that are in question.
That we haven't been notified yet. I don't want to say they're necessarily in question, but we don't know right now what those allocations will be.
And are all these funds managed by the Department of Education?
Most of them are. We have a few that are managed by other groups, but the majority go through the Department of Education.
Okay, thanks for your clarification.
Sure.
Other questions or comments? Ethan?
Just to clarify it, my assumption or understanding was these funds have already been delegated out. They're not waiting to be determined.
The funds that you see on this sheet have already been determined. None
Right.
of these are in question. We've received award letters for all of them.
So it's more a question for future
It would be
years.
in future years.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right. With that motion on the floor, all of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you, Ethan and Jason. You're part of that team as well. Thank you. And of course, Liz, thank you very much. Now moving on to approval of the minutes, seeking a motion that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting of December the 17th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Claire. Discussion or suggested edits? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The ayes have.
Oh, abstain.
Thank you. Pardon me. Yes, Shannon abstains. Thank you. One abstention. The minutes approved. They pass. Moving on to information and reports. Board members, do we have any communications and reports from other boards or organizations? I want to echo what Superintendent spoke of in terms of the trivia night that's coming up. Certainly that do support that if you are able to, that the Foundation is putting on. We certainly appreciate all of their hard work. Any other information or discussions? Seeing none, do we have any? We don't have any other information. So future business, announcement of future meeting dates. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, February the 4th, 2025. We'll have our regular Board of Education meeting here in the Town Hall at 7 o'clock, followed by Wednesday, again, that's Wednesday, February the 19th, 2025, our regular Board of Education meeting, where we will have adoption of the CIP at 7 o'clock here in room 314. Do we have a request for any future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any visitors who would like to make a comment? Certainly, please come to the podium. Please share your name and your town of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak, and please be mindful of Claire, who will hold up, not Claire, you're Claire, pardon me, Charlotte, who will hold up a yellow card when you have 1 minute remaining and a red card when your time is expired.
Thank you. My name is Brooke Daly. I am a West Hartford resident. I have 2 children. My daughter Rose goes to Conard High School. My son Finn is 12 years old, and he goes to Sedgwick Middle School. I'd like to just speak upon 2 things briefly. The first being, speaking of our wonderful IA and IB programs, my son is in the intensive academic program. And part of the success of those programs are wonderful paras. I'm concerned about the shortage of paras within the district and how it is affecting the paras and our special ed teachers. My son Finn would literally not be able to attend school if it wasn't for the paras helping him. He has a dual diagnosis of Down syndrome and autism, and he's nonverbal. He really needs the help with most things throughout the day. With the shortage of the paras and then also people being out sick, I'm just worried that the paras are so stressed out and overwhelmed. In a perfect world, I would love to see there be some sort of floaters that could fill in when are needed. I also feel that the paras are they're greatly deserving of a raise. It's very hard to retain good people, and I think with being properly staffed and paying them more, this will definitely help retain some of these great employees. The second thing I would like to touch upon is my concern about, once again this year, ESY, which is extended school year, which is basically summer school. It is only going to be for 4 weeks again, in the smack dab in the middle of the summer. For students like my son Finn, that he needs a lot more supports, and his disabilities are more on the severe side, I guess you would say. Consistency is key for him. With him just being out of school for a week, it's hard for him to get back into the rhythm of doing things. So I'm just concerned about the lack of time with nothing for him to do, social interaction, whatever it might be, at the beginning of the summer and at the end of the summer. And so I would like, if possible, for the board and our wonderful partners in special ed to consider some sort of extended program for the children specifically that are in the IA and IB programs. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would, yes, please, come to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Miriam Bleich, and I'm a West Hartford resident and parent of 4 children in the public school system. I was inspired to speak by Mr. Goldman's invitation for the public to speak at meetings, and I am here to encourage and empower other West Hartford residents to do the same. I do personally agree that it is imperative for the board to hear in person what residents want to share at both meetings, and appreciate the board members' efforts to revise the current policy. Regarding special education, I also would like to highlight a recent presentation given by expert Nathan Levinson to the Connecticut Summit for Special Ed this November. And these are directly from his slides. He is with New Solutions K through 12. He says teachers are leaving the profession, 1 in 6. Teachers leave their current job each year. 44% of all new teachers quit teaching within their first 5 years, and all 50 states report a shortage of special education teachers. He says special education teachers have the hardest job in K through 12 because they have the widest range of tasks, more meetings and paperwork, moving between schools, and less support at the school level. So he suggests these changes allow staff to play to their strengths, streamline meetings and paperwork, and provide better school-based support. As a parent, I wonder, with such an influx of students receiving intensive academic services, how is the district currently supporting the special education teachers, allowing them to use their strengths, whether it's curriculum building, developing specialized skills and trainings for their support staff, and professional development? What about building compliance with staffing, certified versus non-certified staff? How is the district investing in recruiting staff who are with our most vulnerable and highest needs children? All of these are critical factors in IEP compliance. Staffing consistency is not to be taken for granted. It is key certainly for my child and for many others I know of as well. As a parent, I am deeply committed to our children's education and remain open and eager to collaborate with our schools and district staff. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you and appreciate the district's continued efforts to work towards ensuring and improving the free and appropriate public education for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we do not have an executive session, therefore seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Meeting adjourned.